Welcome to 843 TV. I'm your host, Lisa Richardson.
And I'm your host, Annalisa Itkor. And today we are here on Hilton Head Island in studio, interviewing some of the ladies from DayBreak Adult Care Services.
First, we have our guest, Kaylee Gardner. She's the Community Relations Director.
And then we have Marcia Ward, who is the Education Director.
And they're going to be sharing all about some helpful tips for caregivers for your loved ones during this holiday season.
So stick around for this very important episode of 843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
843 TV, where the Low Country comes to speak.
Where Bluffton comes to speak.
Where Hilton Head Island comes to speak.
Where Beaufort comes to speak.
TV,
where communities come to speak. Welcome to 843 TV. We're here with the lovely ladies from the DayBreak Adult Care Services, and they're going to be sharing how to stay less stressed as you're giving care to someone during the holidays. Welcome, Kaylee and Marcia, today.
Thank you.
Marcia, you are the community educator, so tell us a little bit about your role with DayBreak.
Well, I've been with them now about 3 years, and before that I was a medical social worker and worked for many, many years with the elderly population. And I found when I was working with them, I was often spending most of my time with the caregivers. And so that's kind of how I got started with Coker. And what I do for him is to try to help caregivers learn some tips that can help them in their role, because you know they're shifting roles. They were daughters and they were sons and they were spouses, and now they're a caregiver.
Yeah.
And that's a big role shift sometimes. So I'm trying to help them get through that, and I also go out and sign people up for the service and that kind of thing.
Well, clearly the holidays can be stressful for anyone, but certainly if you're caring for a loved one, it can even make it more challenging. So let's talk about some advice that you might give someone who is caring for a loved one. How do you make it less stressful?
Well, one of the first things you can do is to just take a few minutes to do some planning. You know, if you don't plan, you can often have some disasters. So you have to do a little bit of planning. And I think at the holidays, it's important to try to sit down and think about, what do you really want to accomplish this holiday? You know, is decorating the tree really important to you, or is it maybe that Christmas Eve dinner that's important to you? And so make a list of what you'd like to do during the holidays, the traditions your family has, and then just select a couple. You can't always do it all when you've taken on these additional roles as a caregiver. So just select a couple of things you like to do and plan for those.
I would imagine that when you bring into the picture caring for somebody else, I think that can be a very emotional experience. And the holidays are emotional. And I think when you put those two together, it can be a little bit of a bomb waiting to go off. How do you recommend handling some of those emotional stressors that come into play?
You really have to take time sometimes to just breathe and not try to do too many things at one time. And you know, realize that things are not going to be like they used to be.
Well, see, you know, I think that's so much of it. I know when I walked through my mom's illness, I wanted everything to be perfect, and I was killing myself just trying. And then I was miserable. I remember one Christmas, my husband and I had a horrible fight because I was so stressed out trying to make everything perfect. I wish I'd had you around.
You have to be able to go with the flow.
You do, and especially if you're caring for someone, say, who has memory loss, or a really serious illness. You think you can plan your day, but it takes 5 minutes for that whole plan to change. So you have to learn to be flexible, and like you said, go with the flow, and not worry about it, and give yourself some room, and you know, tell yourself you're doing a good job. Sometimes we get too critical of ourselves, and we need to stop and say, hey, I'm doing the best I can, because that's what most of us are doing.
And we're going to talk about a little bit more about the memory loss in another segment. But you mentioned something we've talked about before, is trying to keep as much normal as possible. And so, as you said, don't try to pick out maybe the most important family tradition. That might be what they find the most normal and things like that. Because physically speaking, that can take a toll on your body and drain you, and then the caregiver is worn out.
You know, if you start letting yourself get overly stressed, you're going to start not sleeping well. You're going to maybe overeat or undereat, and you're going to do all these things, or you neglect your health. You know, so often caregivers, family caregivers, don't go to the doctor. They take their loved one to the doctor, but they don't go to the doctor if they need to. They don't take their medications maybe on time, or say, oh, I'll fill that prescription later. So you need to be sure you're taking care of yourself, or you can't take care of your
It's
loved
that same
one.
concept on the airplane. You know, you use your mask
Right,
before someone else
exactly.
is. If you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to take care of someone else?
Exactly.
So,
That's a great
yeah.
point.
Right.
Yeah.
So we talk about these ways: take a breath, get good sleep, try to eat well. But the holidays are fun, you know. And
Yeah.
and again, when you add in that caretaking element, if someone is sick, how do you keep that level of fun and humor going?
You know, sometimes you have to take a situation that maybe didn't go like you wanted it to go and look at the humor in it. You know, this Thanksgiving I had all of my family in. You know, when you have all your family in, you think the dinner has to turn out great.
Yeah.
And the dinner did turn out really well. But I put the little turkey neck and the giblets and things in to make the gravy later, and I forgot about them and they burnt. And so
Comedy of errors. is
yeah,
what it
and
comes
so
out to
I
be.
pulled it out. Now I could have been all upset, but I kind of said to the crowd, you know, well, if this is the worst I do today, we're okay. You know, And so everybody just laughed, and we just threw it out and didn't worry about it.
Actually, you know what? I love what you just said, because when those things go wrong, I think we beat ourselves up so badly.
Yes.
But like, you got to take a look at the Christmas Story, which is my favorite movie of all
Oh,
time.
yes. Yeah.
That is a family memory built around a disastrous Christmas.
Right.
And the funny stories we tell all have to do with those disasters.
Yes.
So why not celebrate them and laugh in the moment?
Yeah,
you know?
that's
Like,
right.
great. I
That's
love
right.
that.
And by the way, these tips are useful for all occasions,
Yeah.
not
Oh,
just during
yeah.
holiday time,
Not just the
for year round for the
Yes.
caregiver
I
in all
agree.
situations.
Yes, that's
Right.
exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, it sure
Absolutely.
is.
So when you started working with DayBreak, was there something different for you about this organization that you started working with?
Well, I'd had the luxury of knowing Coker Day, the owner of DayBreak, for over, I guess, about 18 years now.
Oh, wow.
When I was working for a practice of geriatricians, Coker was just starting up his business, and he used to come in the office and talk to me about what he could do for our families that we were taking care of in the family practice, and or the geriatrician's office. And I just knew he was somebody who really cared about the patients and about the caregivers, and he really knew what he was doing, and he was real helpful in things that I was doing in the community. He was always very supportive, and so he just told me from those actions that I could kind of depend on him. So when I retired, and Coker was very nice and said, "Would you like to work for me some?" And I said, "I love it." You know?
Well, I know that
great.
they're very happy and lucky to have you at DayBreak. And we're going to talk a lot more about how the holidays and such can impact our lives as caregivers when we come back with more 843 TV. Welcome back to 843 TV. Joining us once again, we have Kaylee Gardner and Marcia Ward from DayBreak Adult Care Services. So we've been talking about the holidays and how stressful they can be. What are some of the things you want to avoid during the holidays?
Don't overdo it. Don't over budget your time. Don't do things you really don't want to. You know, a lot of times people ask us to take on different tasks during the holidays, and this is a good time to learn to say no.
I was just going to
Just
say,
say no,
learn
right?
that word
Yes.
no.
Learn to say no. And it's, you know, if you're caring for someone, it's a good time that you can say, you know, I would love to do that, but taking care of Mother this year, I really can't, but maybe next year, but I really can't do that right now. And go ahead and know that's okay to do that. Most people really won't mind if they know why you
Put
don't
that
want
so
to do
well. I
something.
love how you
Yeah.
put it. So gracious.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and it's okay to say no. It's okay.
That's important.
So if you are getting stressed, you might not be aware of it. What are some signs that you should be looking for in yourself besides somebody getting to the point where they're saying, hey, look, you're doing too much? What can you look for?
Kind of think of either end of the continuum, if you're eating way too much or you're not eating at all. If you're so exhausted you want to sleep and take naps all day, or if you're laying there at night counting sheep and can't go to sleep. You know, if you're starting to get sick, your immune system actually goes down when you're too stressed, and you start getting colds and little things like that. So if your body's just, listen to your body. If your body is telling you things just aren't right, then you're overstressed and you need to step back a minute and look what's going on and see how you can adjust it.
You know, the advice you give about not doing too much is great, but speaking from experience, sometimes it just all gets very overwhelming, and no matter what you do. And you mentioned how hard that little word no can be.
Right.
The other word that I can think of that is really hard to say is help. I mean,
Yes.
how
You're right.
how do you go about asking for help during the holidays when everybody else is so overextended?
Yeah. You know, realize if you're taking care of someone, you need help. And it's okay to ask for it. And a lot of times people want to help you, especially if they know you've got someone with an illness that you're taking care of, but they don't know what to do. And they don't want to overstep their boundaries, and they maybe think they're going to insult you or something, you know. But a lot of times people want to be asked for help, but they don't know what you need. So tell them what you need.
Makes
you
it
know.
easier for them to be able to pitch in.
Right.
Yeah.
And it helps avoid, that 900th noodle casserole holding up on your doorstep.
Yes.
On your doorstep. And you don't need noodles, you know what I mean?
I need
Right.
somebody to
Funny.
rake my leaves
Yes.
today, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes too, if you're really
Yes.
stressed, have that good friend, that you can say, these are the things that are really stressing me out. How can I handle this? And sometimes just talking will help you in your mind work through a plan of what you can do, or that person is maybe slept better last night so they can tell you what to do. And so have a confidant, talk with someone that you trust.
That's great.
And let them know what you're feeling, and they can usually help you find some ways to do that.
And I would imagine it's not a bad idea for that person to be outside of the family.
Yes.
Because I would immediately say, well, I'll talk to my husband. I mean, sometimes
Right.
it's a good idea to have that objective.
No.
Yes.
And, I think, men need man friends and women need women friends, and we need those friends lifelong. And so talk to those people that you are really good friends with, and let them
And
give
you're
you some
absolutely
ideas.
right. Someone outside the family who cares and enough about you to, in a loving way, to hold you accountable, to tell you
Right.
what you need to hear,
Right.
for good reasons.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes
Right.
family members, again, they don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to
Right.
get them mad at me, and
Yeah.
then that
Or
doesn't
they're
really
too
help.
close to it. They,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
hard
Yeah.
to be objective.
Yeah. Some families, I notice when I've worked with families, they really work well if they can come together with a family meeting sometime and say, these are the tasks that we need to try to handle with Mom. And I had one family that was just wonderful. One of the daughters was always the one that went to the assisted living every evening to make sure Mom was okay and that she'd eaten her dinner and spend some time with her. Her brothers and sisters all lived out of the state, so there was not a lot they could do to help. But one always paid all the bills. Another one would come every so often and give that daughter some respite and let her not come for a week or two, and what was wonderful too, all of the other siblings, there were like 5 of them, they would send the main caregiving daughter on a cruise every year.
Oh, what a wonderful
And I thought,
thing. Yeah.
what a wonderful family.
Yes,
They did. You can learn as a
That is
family to
great.
take care of each
That
other.
is great.
But you have to have a meeting about it and sit down and really talk about
Right.
it and try to share those ideas.
Really
Well,
choose.
in my situation, we had a friend who stepped forward. We were talking about the noodle casserole thing. We had a friend who stepped forward and organized meals.
Right.
So people knew what to bring when, food allergies, all kinds of stuff. That was one of the most amazing things, and that was organized by a friend. No one in
Right.
the family even thought about that.
There are a lot of
You know.
communities that are organizing what they call care teams,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are within the churches.
Fantastic.
And they all say, okay, you need to rake the leaves, you need to do the meals, you need to go do the shopping for her this day, and that really helps.
So the help is there.
Yeah.
You just
You
have
just
to
have
be
to put
able
it
to
together.
say that word.
Yes.
So you, as your role as community educator, you can sit down and make all these suggestions and give that guidance to the family so that they can avoid some of these stresses. Is that part of what you can do as one of your services?
Yes.
Yes.
That's very
Yes.
helpful.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. And we touched on money and budget real quick. Any other tips that you can give someone from overdoing it?
Well, it is important to stay within your budget, not just your money budget because you'll worry about it if you go over,
Yeah.
but your time budget.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough, just pick those few things. You cannot do it all. You can't bake every kind of cookie you used to make. Just bake the one kind that your family really likes. Or take that one tradition. For me, it's going to the candlelight service at church in the evening, and afterwards I have lasagna. Okay, so I make that lasagna 2 weeks ahead of time and freeze it, and then we get it out and put it in the oven before you go to church, and then you come home. And that's quiet time. For me, that's always the best time of the holiday. So be sure you're putting some of those quality, quiet times in the holiday too.
Invest in yourself, for sure.
Yeah, and if your loved one has dementia, for example, Don't get them in a big crowd where there's lots of confusion and lights and people bump into each other and
Right,
that kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep it really simple. There's a little acronym called KISS, Keep It Simple, Silly, and keep things simple. Put them in the car and just take them for a little ride in the car
Yeah.
and let them look at the lights that way.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more after our break, so you all stay right here. We'll be back with more 843 TV. Welcome back again to 843 TV, where we're learning a lot today from the ladies at DayBreak Adult Care Services about the holiday season, which can be very stressful for many of us, especially if you're caring for a loved one. And memory loss is a big, tough subject sometimes to talk about, and especially in the holiday time where memories are a big part of it. Talk a little bit about that with us. What can you do to make that smoother to help your loved one?
I think one of the things you want to do is to remember that you can't make them remember things. No matter how hard you try, you can't. And you just have to go with wherever they are that day. You know, trying to orient someone to, oh, Mom, it's 5 days before Christmas. That means not a whole lot to them, or the year doesn't mean a whole lot to them. But if they think it's 1935 and they're going to be getting ready to go somewhere, find out where they're going and who they're going with. You know, go where they are. That's a lot more fun.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, just roll with it.
Sure.
And if you're making holiday plans, try to include them. Sometimes we forget that people, when they get older and even when they have memory loss, it's important for them to feel valuable, like they can contribute in some way. So maybe if you're baking cookies, they can help press the cookie press down.
Yeah.
Or I know one time I worked in a nursing home and I had the guys help me do a Christmas tree. Well, they don't have that dexterity to put the little thing on the bulb and hang it on the tree, but they could take tinsel and they could throw that up there on the tree and put that on there. So find some little simple things that they can do that will make them feel like they're really a part of the celebration and what they do is valuable. Maybe they can help you put some things in a gift bag. They couldn't do the tape and the paper and the scissors, but they could put something maybe in a gift bag if you kind of are there to walk them through the steps, because people with memory loss, they lose the power of sequencing. They can't think, if I'm going to wrap this, I have to do this, this, and this. So you really have to walk them through that, but that's okay because they're going to feel included, and that's what you want, is that feeling of relationship.
These are really good tips. Even if someone's not going through this now, we may all find ourselves there, it's likely.
Oh,
So these are
absolutely.
good things
Yes.
to know now, to
Yes.
be prepared for
Fantastic.
those times.
Yes.
You had mentioned something earlier which I thought was really neat. KISS.
Kiss.
Keep it
Simple,
simple, silly,
silly.
which I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more. So what are some more ideas in that category?
Yeah.
Oh, let me think.
Oh, not to put you on the spot. You know, and it's almost enough just to say, and I even like the silly there, because it reminds us that we need to go a little easy on ourselves.
Yes, yes.
And
Yes.
it's not like keep it simple, stupid.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
just
Keep
keep
it
it simple,
lighter
silly. Just don't
and funny.
overthink it. Just,
Right.
you know, and I loved that suggestion, just taking someone for a drive to see the Christmas lights.
Yes.
You know, that's
Yes.
lovely.
And put humor
Yeah.
in it.
That's
the
it,
silliness,
yes,
like we
I
talked
like
about in
the
the other
silly,
segment.
right.
Or you might go through old pictures when
Nice.
past Christmases. They may remember and they may not. Don't ask them if they remember. Just say, oh, Mom, I remember when you made this dress for me and I was so proud of it on Christmas and it made me feel so good. And you're talking about the emotions in the relationship again, because that's the important thing
Sure.
at Christmas,
Leaving
is the
the
relationship.
details out of it, kind
Yeah.
of just
Yeah.
going about in a simple way, lightweight way, and not getting too detail oriented,
Right.
because that
Right.
can be a
I
little
love that
challenging.
idea of looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's an emotional and sentimental time for
Yeah.
the one explaining it too. So that's almost a therapeutic process
It
for,
is.
for both, isn't it?
Right.
To step away for a moment from that interaction just with the loved one. We all have those Christmas letters we send out. You know, here's what's going on in our lives. We all receive them too. You know, what is the appropriate way to discuss a loved one's diagnosis when you're sending a letter out to family and friends and updating them during the holidays?
Well, we have a letter that we use here at DayBreak, and we can offer it to anyone that needs it. So if you need it, please contact the office, and we can help you with that. But basically just a simple letter stating, you know, if you're coming over for the holidays this year, or if you're going to be seeing us coming up, these are some of the things that are different with my loved one and your loved one. Here's some things to do, here's some things not to do, to say, not to say, just to kind of make it an easy, smooth process for everyone.
Let's face it, some of those family gatherings could be very awkward
Oh.
and
Yes.
create tensions and so forth. So
Well,
that's a good tip.
You know, and people want to be apart, and they
Right.
want to come and be there, and sometimes they don't realize that that can be overwhelming.
Yes.
And so I think it's great to set some boundaries, I
Yes.
guess,
Right.
in that letter. You know,
Yeah.
And a few
I would
little
imagine
tips and
boundaries are
tricks.
kind of important
Yes.
in that regard.
Yeah.
I think that brings up another point. Don't expect your loved one to be there for all of that time frame. They might not be
No.
able to handle 4 hours of visits.
Right.
And-
It is a good time to limit the time because they just can't, you know, even people if they're a little bit older, they can't maybe sit for 5 hours or something if somebody's going
Right.
to
Yeah.
visit forever.
Right.
But I think some of the important things too, like they may not remember you when you come, so don't be offended and don't stand there and go, "Oh, you remember me? I'm your Aunt Sally."
Yeah.
You know, and they really can't, and they think, "Why is this woman that I don't know yelling at me?" So, and a lot of times people
Right.
will raise their voice with somebody with memory loss. They think, "Well, if I yell out loud enough."
I love it.
But they don't. But they don't have hearing loss.
Right.
They have memory loss.
Yes.
So,
Well,
you know,
I have to tell you, this information has been invaluable.
Yes, it is.
And I
Yeah.
think it's going to help a lot of people this year and in the coming years with the holidays.
Yes.
So, ladies, thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
for
Thank
having
you.
us.
And
here.
thank you for
Thank
joining us. And we're
you.
wishing everybody a happy and peaceful holiday from 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.